as we dissolve this ego, as we learn that we're not who we think we are. We are not necessarily our way of life. We're not necessarily all the things that we thought we are. That gives us so much room to be who we want to be, or even to be who we might really are. If we let go of the identity that we have with our job, with our hairstyle, our appearance, who are we then? We can be anyone. And that's what people mean with the law of attraction or with manifestation. We keep attracting who we are, we keep staying who we are because we believe that we are who we are. But the first step of the law of attraction is letting go of who we are in order to move towards who we want to be. You can't identify with something else if you're still identified with yourself. There needs to be this transition that goes to this more favorable identification. Or even one might argue that it's better to not identify with anything at all and just to just manifest without being identified with something. But I'm not sure how that works. I haven't done that yet. I believe that if we can let go of our identity, of our own identity, of this whole accumulation of who we are, what languages we speak, how we look like, how we talk, what our profession is, all of these things, everything we identify with in our lives, the way we talk to people, the way we cope with certain things. And that doesn't mean we lose all of our identity, we lose all of our personality, and we become these quiet monks that don't say anything at all. It gives us all of this room to be so much more instead of this tiny little bits of accumulated identity who we thought we were. It doesn't make us into these quiet monks. It makes us into someone funny, someone charming, someone creative as fuck. Because how can something creative appear out of such a small part of reality? Creativity emerges out of space. Creativity emerges if you give the space to it, and if you give your soul space to paint. You cannot paint on like a tiny, tiny canvas. The canvas needs to have a minimum size, and the bigger the canvas, the more you can express onto it. The more you can try, the more you can make mistakes. And the more mistakes you make, the better you get at painting or doing whatever you want. Doesn't need to be, in the end, everything is creative, but in the end, the more space you have, the larger your canvas is. The less you identify with your ego, which allows for all of this space. Because everything except for the ego is space. Well, I'm getting really abstract here and I might be losing my train of thought. But everything except the ego is space. And that allows for all of this trying out. And for all these mistakes. And for all this creative blooming. And that's the way of life that I'm preaching, honestly. We need to, every time we realize, holy shit, I'm identified with my clothing style. I'm identified with my job. I'm identified with the fear of not passing, not getting my degree, or whatever it might be, fear of failure, anything. As we realize this, every time we notice how we feel about something, fear of, I might lose my identity, something is putting me in question, we can be like, oh, I will let this put my identity in question and not attach to making it work, not desperately grasp my reality around me. Hold on to the relationship that's not working. Hold on to an old way of living. We are supposed to evolve. And all this holding on to things, all this holding on to these degrees, to these relationships, to these ideas, is blocking this change and this evolving from happening. And this evolution wants to pass through us naturally. But the only thing blocking it is our identification with our ego. And this ego makes that we're not evolving because we're so holding on to everything around us so desperately. But yeah, I'm honestly fascinated with losing this ego type of thing. And it's not about destroying the ego. It's not about annihilating the ego. It's about understanding that the ego isn't everything. Because we believe that the ego is everything. We do. But the less we believe it, by realizing every single time how we're identified with something that is not necessarily in our favor, that we can let go of this and don't need to identify with our egos and can identify with everything else or with nothing. It's the same. Holy shit, this is really cool. I had a very interesting train of thought before, but I lost it. But again, this is a great example. You can as well hold on. I mean, any type of tension, any type of accumulation or identification is only an idea of all of the mental activity in our heads. And I had this nice train of thought that I had before that I was wanting to talk about after I finished talking about what I just talked about. And I could hold on to trying to find it back in my mind and then getting it out again. But that's not the way to go about it. That would only make it hyper intellectual. That would make the video boring. That would make me stutter. I don't know. It's not the way I prefer to do it. And instead, I'd much rather just relax, and let the idea come back to me, because it will come back to me, for sure. And this is also an element of faith that one needs to have. Every time you let go of the ego, let go of an identification, you need to have a minimum amount of faith that that will not get you killed. And I promise you it won't. And it really feels like a part of you is dying, but you gotta believe that you'll be all right, that you'll be fine. And every time we do this, this faith increases. We get more faith and we gain more strength in this disidentification with our egos. So as we let go of this, we gain more faith in ourselves and in the universe, which is the same thing. And at first, man, like the first times we get triggered, I mean, all of us get triggered all the time, but the first times we consciously get triggered. So after we've heard of ideas of this sort, of this kind, and we're like, holy crap, I'm really identified with something. I'm really afraid of dying if I don't get my degree, if I lose this relationship. Then where we feel so terrible. Because before we have this knowledge, before we have the knowledge of disidentifying with the things around us, we feel like we have a different way of dealing with stuff. And this makes that, I'm losing my train of thought. This makes that, egos. We just deal with it very differently. And we deal with it by reinforcing our egos, by gaining more armor, by gaining more protection in our stuff. But it's when we let down this armor that's what's really scary. Because you need to trust in the universe that if you put down your armor, you're not gonna get attacked. And you're not. Because this sign of putting down your armor is a huge sign of trust in the universe. And as the universe feels this trust coming from you, this love for the universe and for yourself, it's gonna put down all of its weapons. And honestly, I can't even explain this to myself, but I know that it works this way. And it has to do with you attract what you see, or you attract what you are, and the way you see the world is the way it is for you. So if you see the world as a peaceful place where you don't need any armor, then there won't be any launches of attacks or arrows shot at you, and you'll be good. Whoa, this was I've never talked about stuff that's so deep. This is incredible. I feel so elevated right now because I've never almost thought about stuff that's so deep. But I got into this insane flow state, and I know it was a very ramble stuff, and it drew ideas from many different places, but I'm still practicing this. And honestly, fuck, this was awesome. Stay tuned for more.